Welcome into Mock Trial Masterclass, your guide to controlling the courtroom. I'm Luke and I want you to be a mock trial master. Let's talk about how you can make that happen. A few weeks ago, I got to take the high school mock trial team that I coach to Chicago for the 2024 Empire Mock Trial World Championship competition. And it was such a treat. I really enjoyed my time there with Empire. I had never done anything with the Empire organization before, and they are really top notch. And if you're thinking about taking your team to an Empire competition, this video is for you, because what I'm going to do in this video is review my experience with Empire Mock Trial. There were a lot of things, like I just said, that I love about Empire and that make them a phenomenal organization. There are a few things, though, that I would critique them on and wish would probably get a little bit better moving forward. And we're going to go through all of that in this video. We're going to talk about the quality of the case that they gave us. We're going to talk about the format of the competition. We're going to talk about the quality of the competition, the experience for students, and every category you need to hear about, including cost, to decide if going to an Empire tournament is the right move for your team. Ready to hop in? Let's do it. All right, so the first topic I want to hop into is the quality of the case that Empire gives out. And I've got to say, the case that Empire used for their 2024 fall season, which we were competing in, is maybe my favorite case that I have ever had in my 10 years of being involved in mock trial. I've had some great AMTA college mock trial cases. I've had some great Tennessee local high school cases, great nationals cases, but this one was really fun. The density and the quality of the case mimics a college case. So if you've ever been involved in AMTA and college mock trial before, you know that the witness statements are very in-depth. You know that the exhibits are really cool, really fun to play around with. And you know that AMTA lets you have extremely compelling arguments to make on both sides of the case. And I would say that Empire hit all of those marks with 5 stars and a 10 out of 10. It was a phenomenal case for our students to dig into. One thing I always say about mock trial cases and people who write mock trial cases is there's a fine line between complex and confusing. You want a complex case that lets your students really dig in and ask critical questions, but you don't want it to be so confusing and overwhelming that you sit there and ask yourself, how am I supposed to explain this to a jury in a 5-minute opening statement? Empire nailed that balance. It was not confusing at all, but it was rich and deeply complex. And for that reason, I just couldn't say enough good things about the case that Empire gave us. Up next, I want to talk about the Empire organization itself and the organization of the tournament. And this is something else that I'm going to rave about, because Empire is a top-notch organization. If you've had bad experiences or subpar experiences with your local competitions being a little bit disorganized and everybody kind of running around and no one knowing who's in charge, that would never ever happen in a million years at an Empire competition. They have phenomenal leadership who not only know mock trial and know what's going on, but they love mock trial. They have a deep passion for the activity, and you get that from them whenever they get up on a stage to talk or whenever you just have a one-on-one conversation with them in the hallways. So in terms of the organization of the tournament, our parents loved it. Everyone always knew where they were supposed to go, where they were supposed to be. The logistics were phenomenal. You know, we had 44 teams at the tournament I was at. It's hard to get 44 teams into a courtroom at the same time, and they managed that so well with a staggered entry process. Every team had a time they were supposed to report to the courthouse, and it helped everything just flow really smoothly. And that's just one example of many that I could cite of Empire being a great organization and this tournament being super well organized. Next, I want to talk about the competition level of Empire. I would put Empire's competition level at somewhere between a good state competition and the National High School Mock Trial Tournament. Because while Empire Mock Trial is a lot of really great programs, it's not quite the level that you'll find at High School Nationals. High School Nationals is made up of the state champion of every state that competes in mock trial and sends a team to nationals. And that is the highest caliber of competition you'll find in the high school mock trial world outside of the Gladiator one-on-one tournament over the summer. Empire just doesn't get to that level, and it would be hard for them to get to that level. But the competition quality of Empire is higher than your typical state tournament. Tennessee tends to have a reputation for being a really challenging and honestly hard state to compete in. And there's a reason that Tennessee high schools tend to place in the top 10 at nationals pretty much every year. And I would still say that Empire's competition quality was higher than what we see at a given state competition. Next, I want to talk about the format of Empire's competition. There's three big things that Empire introduces to its mock trial rounds, at least as of the time that I'm filming this video, that are very different than what you'll see in typical high school mock trial rounds. The first of those three things is what's called the guest witness. So the first witness that each team calls in a round is not actually going to be someone from your school. What happens is, let's say you have a witness named Ann Smith, and you pick a student on your team to play Ann Smith. Well, when Ann Smith gets called in your trial, that Ann Smith is going to be another school's Ann Smith. Your school's Ann Smith will go to another trial and be direct examined by another team's lawyer, and your team's lawyer will direct examine a different team's Ann Smith. It's a really cool idea. And honestly, I was super excited about this. But what I didn't love is the fact that the guest witness can really become a problem if the competition and talent levels of all the schools involved aren't equal. Where I've seen the idea of a guest witness work really, really well is at gladiator competition in high school and at trial by combat in college, where you've got the best of the best competitors in the world and everyone's level of talent and ability is the highest it can be. At an Empire competition, though, you're going to have a lot of variation. You're going to have schools that are perennial state champions, and you're going to have schools that if they went to nationals would struggle to finish in the top half. And so what can happen is if you've got a team that is clicking and firing on all cylinders and you have a guest witness come in who's not, that can really interrupt your team's flow and mojo. And even though the guest witness's score only affects their team in the other round, not yours, it can still drag down your attorney's performance overall. And the same is true for if your guest witness goes into another round and they're very, very talented, but the team that they're paired with is not, it can really harm their chances to shine on the witness stand if they're getting asked questions that simply aren't very good, aren't very thoughtful. So overall, my thoughts on the guest witness program was it's not my favorite thing in the world. I talked to some people around Empire who kind of had the opinion of, yeah, it is what it is. So it's really just not my favorite thing in the world. Something else that Empire does very differently that I loved is their timing structure. So most high school mock trial tournaments, including nationals, have a very specific time structure where they'll say, okay, you get 5 minutes for opening, 5 minutes for closing, 25 minutes for your direct examinations, and 20 minutes for your cross examinations. What Empire says, on the other hand, is you have 55 minutes to use however you want over the course of presenting all of those things. I loved that. Because you're going to have rounds where maybe you take a little bit longer for cross just because of the way the rounds are going, and you take a little bit less time for direct. Maybe you want to give an opening that's 5 minutes and 30 seconds as opposed to just 5 minutes because there's one last really important thing you want to say. That timing structure, if you've got a team that can be responsible with it and not waste time early and ruin their chances of having time left at the end of a trial, it allows so much flexibility in your content, and that was my favorite part, I think, of this whole tournament. It was so, so fun. I absolutely loved the time structure of Empire. One other thing that Empire does very, very differently than your typical competition is they open the trial with a motion in limine, or a motion in limine, if that's how they pronounce it in your local area. And what this is it's simply an objection battle, an objection argument that takes place before the trial with prepared speeches from each side. The prosecution or plaintiff gets up and presents their argument. The defense gets up and presents a counter argument, each for about 8 minutes. And then the prosecution will have a chance for a quick rebuttal. And this is scored out of 20 at Empire, so it's a really, really big deal. And my thoughts on the pretrial argument was I kind of enjoyed it when it was done really well. The only thing that makes it challenging is because this is only done at Empire, it's not like other mock trial things that are extremely formulaic. You know, everyone knows what makes a good opening. Everyone knows what makes a good closing and direct. Because this only happens at Empire, it's not something that everyone has a great grasp on. So it was harder for me to coach for that. And I think it's probably harder for scorers as well to figure out what makes a good one and what makes a bad one. I think it kind of became a you know it when you see it type of thing. So those are kind of my thoughts on that. But overall, I do like the format of Empire as being different than a lot of the high school competitions you'll typically see. Some of it, though, did strike me as change for change's sake. All right, we're about to get into the cost of Empire, but first I do want to talk about student experience because my students absolutely loved their time at Empire. Empire always takes place in a big city like Chicago. They've done competitions in Philadelphia, New York, and Baltimore. And part of that is they want the students to be able to experience the city. And so my team and I had a great time going to the Bean, and I took them to Millennium Park to look at the shore of Lake Michigan, which is very, very beautiful on a day like the type of weather we had when we were at Empire. And that's really, really fun for your team. And another thing that Empire really stresses is sportsmanship and being friendly with the other teams. You know, when you go to your state competition and it's win or go home, it's going to be super cutthroat. There's no way around it. But at Empire, where there's not quite that level of pressure, you have some more freedom to take a breath and for your students to get a chance, or if you're a student, to have a chance to interact with other teams and make some friends. And my students really, really enjoyed doing that. There's great Empire merch. They sell like sweatpants and t-shirts and even little teddy bears that a lot of my students bought. So the student experience part of Empire is super fun. All of my kids absolutely loved it. All right, I'm going to let you know the cost of Empire in just 1 second, but first I want to let you know that my book, Mock Trial Masterclass, is available for purchase on Amazon. One of the most fun parts of Empire for me was meeting so many of you guys who came up to me and asked for pictures and told me that you've read the book and that it's been a big help for you, and that meant a lot to me. And I want to keep spreading the message that, hey, this is out there as a guide for any teams, any individuals that want to take their performance to the next level. And if you want to pick up a copy, you can click the link in the description on YouTube or in the show notes on podcast platforms. Okay, let's talk numbers. My team's trip to Empire cost a little over $5,000. That came down to the competition entry fee, which is about $2,000, and hotel costs, which were about $3,000. Now, one of the things that Empire will make you do if you attend their competition is stay at the team hotel. And that creates a super fun environment for the students, but it's also going to be very expensive because they're going to stay at a hotel in a great part of a really big city, and that's just not cheap. It was $3,000 for 3 nights for 3 student rooms and 1 coach room, and that's simply just a lot of money. And it was honestly hard for us to make sure we had enough money to go to the Empire competition, and it's just expensive. There's no way around it. And so as you're asking yourself, is this competition worth it for you? You'll have to listen and think about all the other things I've talked about in this video. Overall, I do think it was worth it for us. It was a valuable experience. We had a good time, and I think my students are a lot more prepared to take on their local and state competition when we get around to the springtime. But that is a decision you'll have to make for yourself because it is quite a big number. So overall, would I recommend Empire? Yeah, I absolutely would. I think it's a great organization. They do a lot of really cool things for the mock trial community. I'm very thankful for them. I love what they do for mock trial. And if you have the opportunity to get involved with them by going to a competition, an in-person competition, I would 100% do that if it makes financial sense for you. Just make sure you know what you're getting into, and I hope that this video steered you in that direction and gave you some more insight.